Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Taiwan Stock Exchange and QIC, we would like to thank you very much for joining us at our 9th Taiwan CEO Week. My name is Shannon Watson, and I am an advisor at QIC here in Taipei. I work with our corporate clients to support them in topics related to sustainability and corporate governance. Our topic today is Taiwan, Leader in ESG, Corporate Perspectives. We have invited 4 panelists that represent Taiwan corporates, regulators, and the investment community to discuss the current ESG landscape in Taiwan, get the highlights and the challenges. But before we begin, it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Rebecca Chen, the Senior Executive Vice President of the Taiwan Stock Exchange, to provide our welcoming address. Ms. Chen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Taiwan Stock Exchange extends a warm welcome to the Taiwan CEO Week on air, and our thanks to QIC and Capital Securities for event co-hosting. 2020 was a year no one expected, and its severe impact on global capital markets had far-reaching consequences. A somewhat positive aspect was the COVID-19 highlighted the importance of enhancing sustainability and the ESG principles into business strategies. It is not just broken supply chains and work-from-home issues. There is the threat of climate change that must be addressed. Larry Fink is the chairman and the CEO of BlackRock, and in his 2021 letter to CEOs, he said that the pandemic has presented unprecedented crisis that forces us to confront the global threat of climate change, and the pandemic have transformed our lives. Sustainable funds are driven by investor demand for ESG factors and had a record-breaking quarter in terms of flows, assets, and product launches. Global sustainable funds attracted $152.3 billion in net inflows in the fourth quarter of 2020. This is up to 88% from the prior quarter. ESG and sustainability are now at the heart of investment decisions. Taiwan's capital market has made ESG development a sustainable priority. This is recognized internationally, as Taiwan's weight is ranked #1 in both the Dow Jones Sustainability Emerging Markets Index and the FTSE4Good Emerging Index. Additionally, Taiwan's ESG achievements was recognized by the Asia Corporate Governance Association in its ESG Watch 2020, where Taiwan moved up in the ranking from 5th to 4th among 12 Asian countries. This recognition requires our non-stop focus to cultivate a leading investment environment. Taiwan's regulatory authority released the Corporate Governance 3.0 Sustainable Development Roadmap and the Capital Market Roadmap, placing greater emphasis on ESG factors. There is growing demand for decision-driven, ESG-related information. Taiwan is managing this through regulations and being globally positioned by including TCFD and the SASB into our regulations. The core value of market integrated and transparency drive us to the highest possible ethical standards. It is our objective to never stop, always deliver and bring diversity to investors. Our market offers sustainable advantages that we will highlight today. May you flourish in 2021 and continue in safety and health.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chen. I would like to now introduce our 4 panelists joining us today. On my right is Pony Huang, who is the Senior Vice President of the Corporate Governance Department at the Taiwan Stock Exchange. Pony joined the Taiwan Stock Exchange in 1989 and is currently overseeing the planning, implementation, and promotion of corporate governance, CSR, and sustainable business development related issues in Taiwan's capital market. She also serves as the Executive Secretary of the Taiwan Corporate Governance Center. To Pony's right is Duncan Atkin, who is the Group Sustainability Officer and GM Office Director at listed company Grape King Bio, listed under ticker 1707 and has a market cap of just under $1 billion US. Grape King is the largest Taiwanese health food supplements manufacturer, founded more than 50 years ago. Duncan has been working for Grape King for just over 8 years and has been actively engaging with foreign investors for the past 7 years in his current role. Prior to joining Grape King, Duncan worked for Volkswagen Group in the UK for 10 years in various roles from HR, CSR, and IT software projects. We're also very pleased to have Steve Chen joining us, General Manager, Corporate Administration, and member of the Board of Directors at Win Semiconductors Corp., listed under ticker 3105, and with a market cap of approximately $5.5 billion US. Win Semi is a pure-play dedicated gas foundry leader. Steve is also the independent director of Weiquan Foods Corp. Steve has over 20 years of cross-industry management experience with an expertise in integrating and optimizing management efficiency. And to Steve's right from the investment community in Taiwan, we are happy to welcome Wei-Ming Chang, CIO of Taiwan Equities at Allianz Global Investors, which he joined in 2012. Before joining the firm, he was CIO China with Franklin Templeton and CIO of BNP Paribas joint venture in Shanghai, where he managed the firm's flagship China fund. Wei-Ming was also the head of research at ING Barings and Merrill Lynch in Taiwan, and an analyst and portfolio manager with Martin Currie Investment Management in Edinburgh. Thank you very much to all of our panelists for joining us today for what is now a rare in-person panel discussion, thanks to being virtually COVID-free here in Taiwan. If you have any questions throughout the discussion, please submit them at any time in the Q&A box that you will see on your screen. We will have some time at the end to answer questions from the audience. Thank you. So let's get started. I would like to begin our discussion today with a question for Pony from the Taiwan Stock Exchange. Last summer, the FSC officially launched the Corporate Governance 3.0 Sustainable Development Roadmap. And this includes a number of new initiatives for 2021 to 2023. Pony, could you tell us a bit about these changes and what this may mean specifically for listed companies in Taiwan? What additional disclosures or regulations should these companies be preparing for? And I guess what can investors expect to see in the future?
Okay, thank you, Sharon. The new CG roadmap focuses on 5 action plans. 3 of the action plans are ESG related, which require the listed company to enhance the quality and quantity of the ESG information disclosure, provide incentive schemes for institutional investors to encourage them in conducting their stewardship investment, and provide ESG products. Action plan to enhancing information transparency covers several measures. First of all, taking TCFD disclosure into consideration. As you may know, the TCFD recommendations are structured around 4 thematic areas: governance, strategy, risk management, and metrics and targets, and cover 11 recommended disclosures. Up to 2020, we require a general disclosure on the 4 thematic areas. Based on CG 3.0, we may further require companies to disclose the 11 recommendations by providing them with guidelines or best practices to assist disclosure of TCFD information through CSR report. Second, taking SASB disclosure into consideration. The SASB recommendation establishes industry-specific standards that assist the company in disclosing financial material and decision used for ESG-related information to investors. According to the new roadmap, we will strengthen the disclosure of CSR reports with reference to the international norms and the SASB. We will also demonstrate best practice for companies' reference. And the above two measures will apply in 2023 for specific listed company to prepare their 2022 CSR report. Additionally, in order to increase the quantity of the ESG information disclosure, in 2023, we will expand the application scope of companies to prepare a CSR report from paid-in capital of over $5 billion to over $2 billion. Till then, the companies that are required to file CSR report will be increased to 700. That is more than 40% of the total listed company. In addition, to improve the quality of the ESG information disclosure, in 2022, the scope of required the third-party assurance will be also expanded. Based on the new roadmap, additional specific industry, for example, chemical industry and financial and insurance industries will be asked to file their CSR reports with third-party assurances, while only the food industry is required to do so today. Currently in Taiwan, more than half of the CSR reports are supported by third-party assurances on a mostly voluntary basis. Lastly, in line with the international trends, in 2022, the CSR report will be renamed as Sustainability Report or ESG Report, and companies that provide CSR reports in English will be eligible for scoring under our CG rating system. Another action plan to push in companies to implement ESG is from the investors' driving forces. Therefore, in the action plan 4, we addressed the stewardship measure. Last year, the TWSE will establish an advisory committee to evaluate those institutional investors with better compliance on their stewardship practices. On top of that, to provide the incentive for the asset management companies, the government pension funds will be advised to select asset mandate managers according to the stewardship evaluation results. Another incentive for institutional investors, in 2022, the regulator SFB will amend the standards for incentive schemes for sites to encourage the asset management company to improve disclosure quality of their stewardship reports. Last year, the TWSE also revised the stewardship principles for institutional investors, which encourage asset management company to incorporate ESG-related information into their investment decision. We expect that institutional investors will engage with the investee company and participate in shareholders' meeting to drive the investee company to perform better ESG. Hopefully, this will lead to an increase in long-term corporate value and create a win-win strategy for both the listed company and the investors. For Action Plan 5, providing diversified ESG products, the related measures including building the sustainability board for green bonds, sustainable bond, and social bond. In addition, we will continue to promote ESG-related index products and attract more investment flow into the sustainable investment in Taiwan.
Thank you very much, Pony. There are a lot of new initiatives coming out. I just maybe want to highlight a few of them. There are a number of things just for the investors as well. We talked about the upcoming, so TCFD and SASB disclosures will be required for certain companies starting in 2023, and that will be for the 2022 sustainability reports for that year. So that is great to see that as well. And we're also increasing the requirements of the compulsory ESG reporting for companies. Currently, it's paid in capital of 5 billion NT dollars, and that will be reduced to 2 billion NT dollars, which actually means we'll have about almost 40% of the market in Taiwan will be publishing ESG reports. So that is also good news. Also, third-party assurance. Pony mentioned that many companies are already doing this voluntarily. It is something that is important to have. The food industry is required to do it currently. Pony mentioned that in the future, we're going to require it for financial, insurance, and chemical industries as well. So, and there are a number of English disclosure, as well as some incentives from the stewardship investment side as well. It's good to hear. So I think that investors will be happy to hear that the stock exchange is helping to drive more disclosures, especially investor-led reporting standards. So moving, Duncan, could you tell us a bit more about Grape King Bio and how your company has responded to this demand for decision-useful ESG-related information?
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you to the Taiwan Stock Exchange and QIC for hosting and arranging today's event. As Shannon mentioned, Grape King Bio is one of the largest Taiwanese-owned health food manufacturers here in Taiwan, with a kind of unique business model of not only R&Ding our raw material, but actually manufacturing products for our own brand, as well as ODM brands globally, mainly in Southeast Asia. Grape King Bio has always taken a very proactive and transparent approach to ESG. It's something that's been embedded in the company since the company was really founded back in 1969. For the past few years, we were actually one of the first companies in Taiwan to issue a ESG or CSR report in both English and Chinese. And I'm pleased to say that from about 3 years ago, we actually started already integrating GR and GR4 standards into our ESG reports. So that's something that we're very proud of, being very proactive and transparent. This achievement of being very transparent and putting out our ESG reports in English and Chinese has also earned us a high rating in the Bloomberg standards as well, which we're very proud of. From last year, we actually integrated as well the SASB standards into our ESG reporting as well. And most importantly to mention, Shannon, is that our ESG report, both in English and Chinese, is verified by a third-party audit company. We think that this is very important as well, as stakeholders and shareholders get a very clear audited report. It's not just ourselves, Grape King, putting a report together and publishing it out to the investor community. So Grape King as well, just finally, we were very much active in conferences like QIC, CEO Week, interacting with investors. So we always welcome investors, shareholders, stakeholders to get in contact with us, get in contact with myself, and we'll be more than happy to share further information with you. So thank you, Shannon.
Thank you very much, Duncan. I think that, having read Grape King's sustainability report, it is very, very transparent. And that's one of the reasons I think why there's a lot of information that is in there for investors to read. And I think, it's also important, obviously, just to point out to many companies in Taiwan that publishing in English is important, especially when you're accessing global capital. So we're seeing more and more English disclosures, which is great. Steve, WinSemi has also been a very early adopter in terms of publishing ESG data in both English and Chinese. And last year, WinSemi was added to the Dow Jones Sustainability World Index, joining its much larger Taiwan peers, such as TSMC, ASE, and UMC. And Win is one of only 24 Taiwan companies included in this index. So Steve, maybe you can tell us a bit more about why WinSemi decided to participate in this sustainability assessment. I know it's a number of questions that cover kind of all aspects of operations and the company. And how did WinSemi compete with larger semiconductor companies with a lot more resources?
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, first, the reason why when we initiate our first report, we decided to do it for the dual version is definitely because WinSemi, actually, we have about half of our investor was the foreign investor. So we think we have the responsibility to let them know what WinSemi was do. Exactly, not just only the Chinese version. That's for our purpose. And then for the ESG, I think that's very important for WinSemi. It's because, as you know, as a semiconductor foundry, every foundry is looking for a big scale and very good operation efficiency. So when we expand our capacity, definitely we will consume more and more resources from the earth. So how to reduce the impact from the environment is really a big important thing to us. And also that's a lot new, right now it's more and more customer was pay attention with that. So it's really not only the operating topic for us, but also how to manage the risk for us about ESG. It will become more and more important. Yeah, and when we first received the invitation from TWSE, definitely at that time, WISM is still a very small company, but we treat this as a very good opportunity for us to upgrade our operation level because, like I say, at the beginning when company established, definitely we are more focusing on to looking for the better efficiency of our operation. But right now, WISM is already become the #1 scale of the gallium arsenide foundry in the world. So besides the operation efficiency, we need to pay more attention about the environment. So this is a very good opportunity for us to have a very systematic way to manage all the risks beside our operation. Yeah, and when we start this program, actually, because of the resources limitation, so we don't try to do it at once. So every year, our committee board, we will have the meeting and discussing every year step by step to see the goal, what we can achieve every year and making progress year by year. And so finally, we got the qualified at the end of last year. And I think it's a very good sample to achieve and encourage Taiwan's small company. No matter how big your size of your company, if you want to do it and continue keeping the improvement, one day definitely you will get achievement and be recognized by the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I think it's very, impressive that, starting out, as you mentioned, as a smaller company, and just consistently each year, making progress. And I think that's important for smaller companies to realize that you don't need to do it all at once. And that I think, also with your corporate social responsibility committee that encompasses, all of the different departments in that, so that it's really a full company effort, and that you're seeing kind of this progress, and use it kind of as a management tool as well to improve overall. So I think that's impressive to see. So congratulations. So just moving on to our investment community here, so from the investors. So Wei Min, as the CIO of Taiwan Equity for a global investor, what ESG factors do you consider in your decision of whether or not to invest, and also what difficulties you're encountering here in Taiwan in doing this type of analysis?
Thanks, Shannon. Thank you for your question. The non-financial factors we consider are many and varied, but they can all be brought down into 4 major areas. The first area I will talk about is disclosure. I think disclosure is always the first step when we do the ESG research. Thankfully, Taiwan do have a pretty good disclosure. There are around 500 companies, they issue the CSR report on the annual basis along with their financial account, which is, and it's continually progressing, so which is a really good direction we are looking at. Second area we're looking at are direction of ESG progress. We certainly want to invest in those companies which are willing to dedicate resources on the ESG and to improve their ESG standards. So those companies who has a clear direction of improving their ESG standard will be favored by us for sure. Of course, we would kind of neglect those companies which has the ESG standard which is deteriorating, or they didn't really look at this ESG issue seriously. The third area we're looking at are sectors. There are certain sectors we do not invest in, such as such as tobacco, such as coal mining or coal-related sectors. Those sectors are serious offense to the environmental issues and or even government or social issues, which those sectors will never invest in. The last area is in terms of events. We try to avoid those companies that has a history of serious ESG events. Okay, that especially when those events may cause some serious financial impact, we will avoid those companies. So those are four areas we consider on the non-financial factors. On the second part of your question, you asked about the difficulties we encounter in incorporating ESG analysis. There are actually three areas we found it pretty difficult. The first one is no clear standards, or we should say no clear framework to follow. We know that globally there are so many different ESG standards competing against each other, and there's no clear framework we can follow. So we don't really know what kind of approach can be recognized by the global investment community. Second is ESG's scope is pretty broad. Well, we all know that in terms of environmental issue, they can be brought down into so many subcategories of environmental issue. Likewise, social issue, governance issue, again, they can be brought into so many issues because the scope is so broad, so it's really difficult to handle it. And especially for asset management firms, usually are smaller in the human resources and smaller in scale. So this comes to the third issue we encounter resources. Okay, usually a company like us, we'll consider ourselves a kind of a pretty major players in the asset management industry in Taiwan. We have an equity research team of 10 to 15 people dedicating the financial analysis, but we need to shift resources to do the ESG resources. If we want to do ESG research really seriously, you almost need to have a dedicated team for ESG, and resources is always the issue encountered by most of our peer companies in the industry. So to sum up, I think the ESG, the industry still do not have a complete ESG infrastructure in place right now. It will take years to develop. So that's something we hopefully we can see it to improve going forward.
Thank you very much, Wei Ming. So I think, obviously standardized disclosures is, important for all of the investors out there, which is, one of the reasons obviously why the stock exchange is looking to implement more kind of investor-led reporting standards. And so that's, why this is important. So there is this kind of at least some type of standardized universal disclosure, and also, industry specific, as you mentioned, right? So it's important to look at different industries and, what's material for that industry rather than, throwing out kind of all of that ESG related data, which may not be as relevant. And I think you mentioned also, the resource issue, which, we hear, it's obviously from the investor side, also a resource issue from the company side as well. But I think what I heard is that you do look at the direction of ESG progress. So I think this is a good reminder to companies that, if investors see a progress, that is important. So at least start now, start with something and continue to kind of move forward. There's not really any excuse to not get started. I think so. Thank you very much. So I would kind of like to move on to we talked a bit about how Allianz is looking at the market. So Pony, when looking at Taiwan, I guess from an overall market perspective, are institutional investors in Taiwan, are they factoring ESG into their investment decisions? And also, I guess you did mention earlier a few of the ESG related products. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about what's available in the market here in Taiwan.
Thank you, Sharon. According to a survey done by National Taipei University from 59 respondent institutional investors in 2020, there were 13 trillion dollars, about $500 billion of SRI in Taiwan. The survey number is much bigger than we have ever known. However, there is still a lot of room for our SRI to grow. Based on the survey, 60% of the investment flow into foreign bonds. Taiwanese stocks and domestic bonds accounted for 15% and 9% respectively of the SRI. In terms of investment strategy, 69% of the investment was done by the negative or exclusionary screening strategy, and 57% of the investment was under the ESG integration method. The exclusionary screening and ESG integration methods are also major SRI strategies used in other countries. Speaking of ESG-related products provided in our market, including bonds, ETFs, and index funds, the Taipei Exchange has already established a sustainable board covering green bonds, sustainability bonds, and will include social responsibility bonds next year. Green bonds outstanding issuance reached a new record of $151 billion as of this March. ESG-related ETF attracts investors' attention and grow very fast. Now the total AUM of the 3 ESG ETFs are nearly $40 billion. Furthermore, this ESG-related ETF outperformed TAIEX in 2020. The Taiwanese Labor Pension Fund also trades 4 ESG-related indices as benchmark of investment mandate, which contributed around $113 billion of SRI in Taiwan. These 4 indices that the fund tracks, including the Taiwan Employee Creation 99 Index, the Taiwan High Compensation 100 Index, the FTSE for Good TIP Taiwan ESG Index, and the TIP Taiwan Market CSR Small and Mid Cap Index. Taiwan's ESG performance is also recognized by global index compiling company. Through the indices they compiled, Taiwan has weighted the top place among the ESG emerging indices, including the Dow Jones Sustainability Emerging Market Index, which is DJSI, and FTSE for Good Emerging Index, and MSCI Emerging Market ESG Leaders Index. Hopefully, through the positive competition, there will be more Taiwanese companies included in the components of global ESG indices. In addition to gaining visibility, they also can earn the investment inflow. Thank you.
Thank you, Pony. Yes, I think Taiwanese companies are very good at being competitive. If there's a kind of a challenge out there, I'm sure Taiwanese companies will meet it. Just a reminder to the audience out there, if you do have any questions at any time, please submit them into the Q&A box. You can, if you can't see it on your screen, I think you can touch on, there's 3 little dots at the bottom, touch on that and open the box, and you can type in your questions there, and we will try to answer them at the end of the session. So I would like to move now a bit more to the E part, to the environmental side aspect. Duncan, Grape King signed on to the International RE100 initiative in 2019, and at the time was one of only 4 Taiwanese signatories. What is RE100, and why did Grape King decide to join this initiative?
Thank you, Shannon. The RE100 initiative is brings together a group of global companies who are committed to using 100% renewable energy in the future. When this particular initiative was brought to our attention, the RE100 initiative was brought to our attention, our ESG CSR team saw it as a great opportunity to reduce or look at ways of reducing the way our company has an impact on the environment, as I'm sure many other companies do as well. So just to name some of the big companies out there who have signed up to RE100 and the influence of RE100, we've got Google, Apple, and of course the Allianz Group as well. I'd like to say that we were one of the advocates for RE100 here in Taiwan, because shortly after we signed up, TSMC also signed up as well. So I think this is a great initiative, and the company, our company Grape King, think that this is a great initiative. And our goal, just out of interest, by 2035, we would like to be using 100% renewable energy. Now, this in itself brings a few challenges in that at the moment, 95% of energy that's used here in Taiwan actually comes from non-renewable sources. But I do know that the government, they are very committed to introduce more renewable energy into Taiwan. And by 2025, we should be up to about 20% renewable energy. Pricing as well is also a challenge for us as a company for renewable energy. But again, it's things that we're factoring in, especially in our current factories. So how can we add solar panels? How can we also generate some of our own renewable energy? And also our new factory, which is about to be built this year and into next year, we're looking at ways of how we can integrate new renewable energy sources into that particular factory there as well. There's a quote which I'd just like to read out just very quickly, which was made by our chairman, Dr. Andrew Tsen, when we signed up to RE100. He stated, creating a sustainable company that improves lives has always been part of the mission of Grape King Bio since it was founded by my father in 1969. This year, from a product point of view as well, and also our impact on the environment, we have always been aware as a company how we can improve people's lives, not only from a product point of view. So we develop between 100 and 200 products per year, not only for our own brands here in Taiwan, but also for the ODM clients, which reach out to a global audience. But again, improving people's lives, not only from a product point of view, but also our environmental impact as well. So I believe this is a great way. We're certainly committed, as many other companies out there are, to using renewable energy. And I would also advise as well the other Taiwanese companies out there who have not signed up to RE100 to get involved. This certainly does help us out. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Duncan. Maybe Grape King was one of the incentives to get TSMC to sign up recently to the RE100, which is wonderful for Taiwan as well. Great. So the resource efficiency we're talking about, and Steve, you mentioned this earlier, especially critical in the semiconductor industry. So what recent initiatives has WinSemi implemented or plans to implement to reduce its environmental impact?
Okay, Sharon. Yeah, I think as a semiconductor foundry, definitely, especially in Taiwan, I think the water and the electricity definitely was the most crucial risk we need to face and to management. Yeah, so for these two crucial factors, actually, every year, our engineer or our committee, we need to sit down and face-to-face to check all the data and try to find a better way to making the improvements. For example, our R&D team, every new generation technology developing, actually right now they were more considered about the material and also the efficiency to see how to reduce loss consumption. And also for our facility team, actually, how to making our water usage and electricity usage become more efficiency and making the recycling percentage become higher and higher every year. That's really the continuous topic for us. And also, on the other way, we still see more about the environment, such as the VOC and also the PFC impact of about the environment. So every year, we also will look into the market to see did they have any kind of new equipment that can help us to reduce those production, and also to check with all our existing fab for the existing technology process to see how can we reduce it year by year. And so that's what we do for our existing fab. And at the same time, as you know, WinSemi is still making the expansion every year. So for our new fab and the new clean room, actually, when we plan to build it, every time we will check with our facility team and also our vendor or the equipment vendor to see the any new equipment or new idea that we can fit in for our new fab. And so we try to do that at the beginning when we plan a new fab. So I think this is a two-way right now. We see how WinSemi to control and management about the impact about the resources. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Steve. Yeah, I think that's a concern sometimes with companies is how much efficiency can you get on your current operations and your current fabs. But as you're building new ones or new factories, this is something absolutely to consider at the beginning, how to be more efficient. So I think it really seems we talked sustainability is very almost part of the DNA for Grape King, both Grape King and WinSemi. But Wei Ming, when you're looking at companies and you're talking to companies, how can you distinguish between this genuine integration into the company culture and someone who's maybe just, or companies that are just kind of doing an ESG box ticking effort?
It really comes to a deep analysis of the company and a deep understanding of the company. Whether the ESG intention is inbuilt in their culture or it's just kind of doing the lip service, that's totally different. So again, we starting from looking at what those companies we're talking to, what they are doing. Do they have this very basic, very fundamental CSR report or ESG report published on an annual basis? Are they just like Grape King? Are they a member of the new initiatives globally on the environmental or other social governance convention? All these sort of things. That's a starting point. Second, we look at the record of those companies, whether they have any serious ESG offense in the past or not. And thirdly, we talk with the leaders of the company, the senior executive or senior managers of the company. What's the level of understanding they have on the ESG? What kind of a system, what kind of a process they really put in place to improve the ESG standard of the company. Those are all the issues we are looking at about a company, whether we truly believe this is a company that pursue an ESG goal or they are just doing the kind of a service job.
Great, thank you very much, Wei Ming. We talked a lot about, I think, it's come up a number of times about resources. So, there are a number of smaller companies that may not feel in Taiwan that they have the resources or they don't see the need yet to allocate resources to keep up with many of these new ESG related disclosures. So from a regulatory viewpoint, Pony, what would be your response to these type of, I guess, pushback or comments?
Yeah, if the SME improves their ESG information disclosure and performance to increase their chances to be included in the ESG indices through becoming the ESG products, they can increase their liquidity and visibility. And for example, Taiwan Labor Pension Funds tracking TIP Taiwan market CSR, small and mid-cap indices. As benchmark of investment is one of the incentives that we provide for SME to encourage them to improve their ESG information disclosure and performance. In addition, in the corporate governance evaluation, we are planning to increase the SME category and to create the SME ranking list. And this will make it easier for investors to compare apples with apples. This will highlight SME with good CG performance and will lead to market recognition by investors. In the long run, we intend to build up an ESG disclosure platform and data bank. Based on the database, we will establish our own ESG rating system, taking into consideration the characteristic of Taiwan's sectors and the small and medium-sized companies' demand. And last but not least, the SME will be advised to prioritize their focus on financial materials and decision useful ESG-related information disclosure. And TWSE will also assist them by providing the training courses or seminars.
Thank you, Pony. Yeah, so I think it's good to hear that there's a lot more opportunities for smaller companies to have recognition for their efforts. In comparing similar sized companies, right? I think that's very important to look at as well. Also, we talked a bit about the ESG data bank and opportunities for training that the stock exchange is providing. So that's helpful. Next, I would like to touch, we don't have a lot of time, but touch on some human capital management issues. Globally, this has obviously moved to the forefront for many investors, reinforced by the effects of the pandemic and an increased attention on diversity at companies. So in terms of gender diversity, Grave King Bio has maintained an almost 50% ratio of male to female employees. Duncan, do you think this plays a factor in long-term value creation for your company and in your industry?
Thank you, Shannon. Yeah, I'm quite proud to say that Grave King is a company which looks, is an equal opportunities employer, and the way we actually look for new employees, etc., to join our company is based on the fact of the right person for the right role rather than a gender. So yes, as mentioned, we're about 50% at the moment between male and female. This we also feel has a positive effect on the fact that we don't end up with a one group thinking kind of concept, as well as it spurs on quite a bit of creativity. In the last few years, just for example, in the last few years, we've been launching some beauty drink related products, again, spurred on by some of the R&D personnel or employees and colleagues who are female. So when we look at our workforce, we like our workforce to be kind of a representative of our stakeholders. That's from the consumer side, the community side, as well as investors, shareholders, etc. Now, this year, we're quite excited as well in that our board re-election is on this year. The candidates are up on our website at the moment. So if investors, the community would like to go out and have a look and see who the candidates are. But this year we're expecting with the new candidates on board coming onto our board, we will actually end up with a board which has 52% female representatives. So that's great news. Again, a sign of us as a company being a little bit more diverse, creative, and again, taking into account the interest of all stakeholders from the investment, the consumer side, etc. So thank you.
Thank you, Duncan. So I think just to clarify, I think it's 42%, right? Not 50.
Oh, sorry, did I say
50? Oh, yeah, yes.
Apologies. Apologies.
I was like, I would be super happy with 52%, but yeah, 42% female.
Apologies, that's me thinking too quickly. It's 42%. Thank you.
Okay, next time, 52. We're going to 52. All right.
4 years later. That's the next goal. Thank you.
So
maybe I also want to step in here. In terms of gender equality, is really Taiwan's strength. If you look at the Alliance GI Taiwan, for example, our top management, among 5 top management in my company, 80% are female, only 20% are male. We have a chair lady, we have a female CEO, we have female COO, we have a female CMO. Only I myself, CIO, is male. Okay.
It actually, I mean, Win Semi also has a pretty strong profile female to male ratio. And I think, WinSemi's strengths in innovation and talent retention have been really critical to current success and also, long-term sustainability. So Steve, how has Win encouraged, I think, this culture of innovation at the company, and how do you now retain and keep talent when you're in such a competitive space in the semiconductor industry?
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, I think innovation is really become the culture of WinSemi. Yeah, and that's when we established WinSemi, that's the culture we try to create. The reason is as a foundry, definitely we need to compete with all the IDM in the world, and also we need to provide the best technology to all the design house. Yeah, so how to do that? Definitely not only just keeping investment for the R&D expense, but also we need to making it become a culture that everyone recognize with that about the innovation. Otherwise, it's impossible for a foundry that you can improve your technology year by year and even become better technology, compete with all those the tier 1 IDM company in the world. Yeah, so innovation is become very important event to WinSemi. Actually, every year we will have maybe around like 2 months event for our innovation activities. It will including like the contest, the seminar, and even the sharing meeting from each team of the company about the innovation. And the reason we do that is we try to encourage and also invite all the staff in the or the employee of WinSemi, not only our R&D team, but also our operation team from the fab, from the facility, and even from our IT or even the human resources. You can bring the idea about the innovation and to making the company improve our efficiency, or even create a new activity or a new business, and even help the company to provide a better customer service in the future. That's all, any kind of idea. If you can help company with that, you can bring it out and let the company, everybody to discuss with that publicly. Yeah, so because those kind of activity we already hold maybe more than like 5 years, so we see right now innovation is more become the culture of our WinSemi. Every year we have more and more projects that rise up by our employee. Right now, every year we maybe have more than hundreds of ideas that's bring out by our employee, and we need. And once we check with that and see it's really become help. Actually, that's a lot of award to also through the projects. Yeah, and also for our employee retention, actually. As you know, as a foundry, definitely our employees are a very important asset to us. So every year, except of the profit sharing, we definitely will do that. But also, we have other like the waste care of for the employees, such as like for I think it started from like 2 years ago. We have a new policy that every employee, if you have a child below 6 years, every month the company will provide a subsidy to you. Right now, I think that will be 5,000 per child a month. Yeah, and I think that's really help us for our employee, because right now WinSemi, the employees' average age is just about like 30 to 35 years old. And like Sharon said, actually our male and female may be quite equal for that. So this policy is really achieve our employee to treat Winsemi as a very comfortable place and treat like a home and everybody like a family. Yeah, and so it's really help us to keep our retain our employee in Winsemi. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I think it's really interesting the innovation contest as well that you mentioned, and that it's open to the entire company to offer ideas. And it's great, great to hear as well about the subsidies, and I think that definitely helps in retaining employees. Just moving to our last question, then we'll try and get to there's a few questions from the audience. So just from we talked a lot about different strengths and opportunities, but from your perspective, in terms of longer term sustainability in the Taiwan market, what strengths and opportunities do you see?
Okay, thanks, Shannon. From our perspective, we think Taiwan is actually a leader in many areas when it comes to sustainability. If we refer to the strengths, I would say that the first strength Taiwan has is transparency. We have probably one of the most robust governance regime in Asia compared to our neighboring countries. So I think we do have a culture that company is willing to talk to investors and to provide as long as they can provide, right? They can provide the better transparency to the investor to understand the company and understand the intention of the company. And the second, I will say it will be the government initiative. Our government and the public sector have been the champion for the ESG, just like we have a forum here today. It's actually as a very good example of our government intention to promote ESG in the financial sector. And the third things will be I will call it the trickle-down effect. Most of Taiwanese companies, they produce this kind of middle goods. Their clients are usually the major global companies. And when those global companies, they put the sustainability as their priority, you will see this kind of trickle-down effect down to Taiwanese companies. So that's why Taiwanese company has actually very willing to follow this global standard in terms of ESG. So that's the three areas I talk about the strengths of Taiwan in terms of sustainability. And question, you talk about the opportunities we have. In terms of opportunities, first one I want to mention, as we just discussed, that Taiwan is one of the most progressive country in the world. Not just about the gender, but also about being equal to giving the equal opportunity to every member of the society. On that part, I think Taiwan is doing a very good job on that. And second, Taiwan is also a leader in the cyclical economy. With one of the world's most effective recycling regimes in the world, like the garbage recycle, Taiwan is doing a very good job on that. And thirdly, and lastly, I should mention that our government does have an ambition and a big goal to make green energy the priority of our energy source in Taiwan. We have one of the largest offshore wind power project in Taiwan. I think that's all provide a huge opportunity for us to invest in the ESG related either project or companies here in Taiwan.
Great, thank you, Wei Ming. Not sure if you still hear us out there, hopefully. There we go, I think we're back. Great, thank you very much. Yeah, and I can attest to how great and wonderful a place Taiwan is to live, having been here for 20 years now already. So we have we have time for a few questions here that we do have from the audience. I think the first question is kind of an easy, kind of quick question that Pony, you touched on earlier. So we're asking that the Taiwan Stock Exchange is requiring certain industries to have third-party assurance in the future. So what is the expected timeline for this? Thank you.
This will implement in 2022, this next year. But however, we will revise the regulation at the end of this year. So and then apply next year.
Great, thank you very much. And this question maybe for Duncan or Steve, if you want to answer it. So this question about, are companies here in Taiwan seeing more and more local investors asking for ESG information, or do you feel the push is coming more from regulators?
Steve would like me to practice my English. So I shall help him out on this one. But from our personal experience and Steve's personal experience, yeah, so in interacting with local investors here in Taiwan, definitely. We kind of saw this starting to happen back in 2019, actually. I remember more and more local investors were starting to ask about ESG information. Your ESG reports, are they GR4 standards? It surprised me, to be honest with you, because these were often questions you would get from foreign investors. Foreign investors, we've seen for quite a few years now, they're very open. And I think it's a good thing as well. They actually start from your ESG report when they're looking at your company, and then from there look into the financials, the company, what the company does, etc. So yes, we're definitely starting to see more and more local investors looking at ESG and taking it seriously, which I think is a great thing. Thank you.
Maybe just a last quick question. I'm not sure if this is maybe a difficult question to ask, but one I was asking about, is there any potential pitfalls that we should bear in mind or to avoid when we're promoting? So from a company perspective, when we're promoting ESG in the company, are there things that we should be kind of considerate of? Do you think from a company perspective, or things to focus on maybe that you can kind of give some advice to people out there that are trying to implement this?
Okay, thanks for the question. Again, I'll help out on this one. From our personal experience, from a Grape King experiences, I would say ensure what's in your ESG report is what the company's actually doing or implementing, etc. Don't make it a tick box exercise. Investors, the community out there are very aware. I believe from my experience, whether it is just a report put together, or if the company's heart is actually in it. I think Wei-Ming was actually saying, you can tell the investment community is smart. They've seen many reports. Also, get the whole company involved. I would say get the company involved. Steve mentioned it, and as a Grape King also do it as well. We have an ESG team or a CSR team made up of different colleagues from around the company. That way you actually get a broader perspective of how you can, as a company, improve certain parts. I know that there was, in the early days, there was actually one of our weak points. This was about 5 years ago. One of our weakish points was actually the environment side, the E part. But actually we found once we had certain parts or colleagues from that part of the business, it helped us improve that score. When I talk about the score, it was the Morningstar report at the time, etc. The Sustainalytics report that we were scoring a little bit low on. So get the whole company involved, and finally get it verified by a third party. Again, getting it verified by a third party means that, again, you might as a team have put everything together, but there might be that one small point which you're missing at a company view because you're just looking at it in too much detail. But from the third party angle, they're able to help you out. That would be Grape King, and on behalf of Winsami's advice to the.
Great. Thank you very much. So unfortunately, we have reached the end of today's session. I want to thank our panelists very much for joining us today. Pony Huang, Duncan Atkin, Steve Chen, and Wei-Ming Chang. Thank you very much, and engaging in such a very interesting discussion on ESG in the Taiwan market. Thank you very much to all of you joining us today. And following this session, there will be a QR code you will see on your screen. And we ask if you please help us to complete this survey. It really helps us to improve our events going forward. You can also follow up with any questions by emailing us at QIC. And if there are questions we didn't get to today, please follow up and we can try and pass those along. On behalf of the Talk Exchange and QIC, thank you very much for joining us today and have a wonderful week.